He's 4, he's bald, and he's the worst. Just look at them. What are they? Like weird space alien things with a TV in their stomach? I genuinely don't remember this show being this creepy, but clearly it was. How do they afford to keep Clifford? The world kind of sucks right now, but you know what doesn't suck? PBS Kids. Yes, we all remember PBS Kids, and sometimes we get a weird little nostalgia kick from it. Man, look at all these shows. I don't even remember this one. So I, as a normal, well-adjusted adult, took off a week of work to watch all of them from my childhood. Now, as a Zillennial, yes, a Zoomer and Millennial, I'm a 1994 kid, I'm gonna focus mostly on the shows between like 1997 to 2005-ish because that's the era I grew up with PBS. And you're probably asking yourself, wait, how many hours is this? How many shows? How many episodes? It's a lot. And we're gonna rank them all in this fridge with magnets. PBS has been on air since October 1970, with PTV, their first kids block, coming in 94, and in 1999, PBS Kids. Now, there's certain shows like Mr. Rogers, Sesame Street, Arthur, Reading Rainbow that I'm just kind of gonna skip over because they're automatic A tier, they are PBS royalty, we'll just move on. Let's talk about the stupidest, most dumb, ugly, hated in PBS history, Caillou. Caillou is supposed to teach you about how to express your emotions and emotional intelligence, but you know what Caillou actually teaches you? It teaches you that if you cry enough and complain, the world will just cave into your demands and give you what you want. He's 4, he's bald, and he's the worst. Caillou wasn't learning any life lessons. He was committing emotional warfare at the age of 4 wearing footy pajamas, and we just let it happen. The whole entire show went like this. Caillou has a tantrum and he complains and he's like, Mom, Dad, I want this thing and I want. And his parents were like, of course, Caillou, here's exactly what you wanted. Plus here's a cookie because you deserved it. No consequences whatsoever. Speaking of which, let's talk about some episodes. There's Caillou makes cookies. Caillou tidies his toys. Caillou rides his bike. Caillou makes a snowman. That's right. They crammed 4 of these tiny little episodes into one long episode. This kid showed up busy and ready to have a tantrum. Like segment 1, Caillou makes cookies. It sounds cute, right? No, Caillou just wants to make cookies, but not actually do anything to help the whole entire time. He just makes a mess, cries about flour for some reason, and just gets to eat cookie dough like he's earned something. No chores, no lesson learned, he just gets sugar. He's a monster. Another episode is Caillou tidies his toys. You think he's really actually gonna tidy anything? And by tidy, of course I mean he just sits there and complains, throws a tantrum, and then his mom does it for him anyways. Like, if I did this when I was little, I swear to God, I would still be beaten by my mother to this day. And then, of course, my favorite, Caillou builds a snowman. You think he actually built a snowman? No. Well, I mean, he kind of built a snowman. By kind of built a snowman, I mean, he sits there and whines the whole entire time. Why is it called Caillou built a snowman? You know what it should be called? Caillou supervises his sister doing it because he's too lazy to and just complains while holding a carrot. I'm sorry, he held the carrot the whole entire time. Good job, Caillou. What the actual was this show teaching kids? How to be the worst child ever in history and just throw tantrums to get what you want? F tier. It's an F tier, and I don't know why PBS ever put this on TV. Jumping into 2002, we have the Emmy award-winning show Cyber Chase, and I can tell you with the utmost honesty, this is the first time I've ever watched this show before. Yeah, I was kind of scared of this show when I was little, and you'll see why in a minute. It was a math-based edutainment kind of show, and no, numbers are not the reason I was scared of it. Our 3 main characters, Jackie the brave one, Matt the generic white guy, and Inez, the only one that has any kind of logical sense. We follow these 3 as they thwart hackers' evil plans to take over cyberspace from Motherboard. Oh god! Yeah, her. She's the reason I was terrified of this show growing up. Those eyes, they were just soulless. I hated it. Everything about her design was terrifying. It just giving me the heebie-jeebies. Anyway, long story short, Hacker is played by Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future, and just perfect casting. Crazy scientist with that just specific voice. I love it. So Hacker puts his virus into Motherboard, which is the whole plan to take over cyberspace. Also, you can tell how dated this show is because they keep saying cyberspace, and that's such a late 90s, early 2000 phrase to say the internet. Motherboard needs help, and she just decides to kidnap these 3 random kids. Yes, literally, she just kidnaps these kids and tells them, hey, you gotta go save cyberspace. I know it has nothing to do with you, but go do it. Also, take this bird thing. His name's Iago. Wait, no, Iago's right. So Digit, who used to work for Hacker, has all this knowledge about cyberspace with the time he spent with Hacker, and ends up deflecting him and going back to Motherboard. Seriously? So original. Have you watched the Aladdin TV show? Oh, that came out before? I wonder if they got any ideas from that. So the first episode is all about the kids going to the cyber island to help Dr. Marbles, who's super uneventfully unimportant. Like he's barely in the show. I don't know why in the first episode they made him feel so crucial, but super unimportant. But they have to go find him, and they end up learning cartography on their squawk pad along the way. So their squawk pad's kind of like a futuristic iPhone thing, but it just looks like a TI-84 calculator that can just magically do anything. It's like a MacGuffin. It's like, oh, you need it to be a communicator, but also do these really big arithmetic things, and oh, it's a map now, and also it takes pictures and does all this stuff. Like, no, come on, like. So the day is saved using mapping skills that the kids picked up, and they thwart the evil hacker, and they get sent back home until Motherboard needs them again. Then at the end of the show, we have this thing called Cyber Chase for Real, where we follow some of the voice actors around in real life scenarios using the skills that we learned in the show in real life. So the thing I really do love about this show is the world building that they do, because they create these cyber sites, which like, it feels like they took Star Wars and Doctor Who and said, boom, let's just make a creative world where we can go, in history, we can go into the future, whatever it is, and just, you have no lack of creativity that you can put into the world. Because you can't make math fun, really, but you can make everything around it fun. It's entertaining because it feels like they existed a long time before we entered the show and will continue to exist way after we leave it. Inez and Jackie have tons of character to them, and they develop over the show, and Matt is just, well, he's Matt. And just looking at the antagonist from an objective stance, like, he's written very well. He feels like a Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty, just like a G-rated version, because he has a good backstory, he's pretty intelligent, and he just keeps the show moving. His reasoning for doing things feels a little silly, but there's some kind of like intelligence behind it sometimes. Sorta. But like if I was a kid that wasn't terrified of my own shadow back in the day, would I have eaten this up? Yeah, 100%. As an adult, I feel like this show is kind of an A-tier thing because no one wants to learn how to do math. Math is stupid. I hate math. But like this show kind of presents it in a fun, different kind of way. And the show kind of does feel repetitive at times because you're like watching all these episodes in a row and you're like, I feel like we learned this 20 episodes ago, but no kid was supposed to watch this many episodes in a row. Only some idiot like me who would take off work for a week would do that. Obviously.
I don't want to watch this show.
Teletubbies is one of the worst shows PBS ever made. Like, it's literally a 3.9 on IMDb. And yet they made 485 episodes of it. Why? Just look at this title sequence. They literally cut off Tinky Winky's hand on the green screen for it. Like, you think I'm proud that I know the Teletubbies names? I'm not. I hate myself for it. Hated this show growing up. I always did. I hated it. My parents hated it. All the adults that I knew hated it. My teachers hated it. Everyone hated it. And yet again, 485 episodes and a reboot. Just look at them. What are they? Like weird space alien things with the TV in their stomach? There's a creepy baby that's the sun for some reason. And oh yeah, this wet telephone with a creepy lady's voice coming out of it. And they live in this like weird Doctor Who TARDIS thing with like it's bigger on the inside than the outside. Are they friends? Are they family? I don't know. Someone tell me. The show doesn't even have a plot. It's supposed to be some like warm, comfy thing for preschoolers, but like it's not. It's not. The first episode's literally them coming down a slide and then going to the table and eating Tubby Toast, which is just like a pancake with a smiley on it. Sure. Then the pinwheel outside starts to spin and sparkle and they're like, uh-oh. And they run outside and jump up on the hill and they're like, what are they doing? What are they doing? Someone tell me what they're doing right now. And there's a child in the Teletubbies stomach TV thing now. That's great. Oh, it's a toddler and we're just following them around doing what? Oh, they're playing with the bike? That's cool. I don't understand what they're saying or doing, but sure. Oh, guess we're just like done with that now. We're back to the Teletubbies. Oh, is that narration? Is there gonna finally be a plot here? No, that'd be ridiculous. All right, Poe, salvage this episode. Tell me something's gonna happen. Where are we doing? You're just walking around with a flag. Okay, cool. And now it's gone. Oh, back to the pinwheel. It's sparkling again, it's spinning. Oh boy. Why do they always go, uh-oh, like something actually is gonna happen? Why? Nothing's ever happening. It's just them going, ah. Why not? We'll just run over here and oh, there's a bunch of animals by twos walking down the hill thing. What? Sure, okay, great. And they're gone now. That was the episode. It makes less sense when I explain it out loud than it did when I was watching it. Do you understand that I sat through like 40 episodes of this garbage and it did not get better whatsoever?
Losing my mind, I'm losing my mind.
This was literally every single episode the whole entire time. No, you don't believe me? You don't believe me? Okay, no, come here. We're gonna watch episode 40 together, come on. Oh, the creepy soulless vacuum's trying to suck up Tinky Winky's blanket while he sleeps. The real world segment's just some kids trying to blow bubbles. Lala finds a ball that turns into a cube. And how could we ever forget the magic pinwheel that spins and oh, now there's a flood and there's an ocean liner and it goes away. Cool. Great. Every freaking episode. I understand that Teletubbies was supposed to be a show for preschoolers, but you know what else was? Blue's Clues. Bear in the Big Blue House. Big Comfy Couch. Like, there was a point to those shows. What is happening here? F tier. The show was an F tier. I hated it. It was so awful. I watched so many hours of it and I feel dumber for it. And I know my girlfriend loves it. She loves it growing up, but I can't deal with it. It was such a bad show. F tier, the worst thing I've ever seen. Bill Nye was the edutainment show, and I don't even know if I need to go into details about it, but I will. Bill Nye The Science Guy made learning science awesome. He was like the cool science teacher you had in elementary school that was hopped up on caffeine, that would act upon every single impulse of thought he had and like create crazy experiments and look at you afterwards and go, there, you'll learn something new, on to the next thing. The show was phenomenal. It was hilarious with its skits. It did a bunch of different experiments you've always wanted to try. It did experiments that you could try yourself. Musical parodies at the end. There wasn't as much as a story to each episode as much as just like themes that carried across entire seasons. Season 1 was kind of laying the foundations of science to you, so you're learning about things like gravity, physics, earth science, biology. Season 2 takes you a little deeper, teaching you things like magnetism or chemical reactions. Season 3 was all about teaching you about Earth and life. You're learning things about like the planet, germs, evolution. Season 4 was all about environmental science and engineering. Season 5 was the most advanced one, so we're learning about like forensics, genes, the science of music. And speaking of music, I'm discovering that on this adventure of watching all these shows that the best shows have the best opening theme songs, or maybe that's just the most important thing to me, I don't know. Everything was so fast-paced and bite-sized, so you retain all the information, like how I know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It is an A-tier show, if not the A-tier show, and it is the greatest thing that PBS ever syndicated. Period. Animal shows for kids, it's nothing new. I mean, before Zaboomafoo even existed, Chris and Martin Kratt, the creators of Zaboomafoo, had this show called Kratt's Creatures, where they go into the wilderness and answer questions about animals that kids might have, in fun and creative ways. I know that's like a lot of exposition, but like you need to know why this show succeeded and why it connected with its audiences so well. Because kids love seeing animals on screen, but what they really need is some kind of like intermediary character to connect with them, and that's where Zaboomafoo, or Zabu for short, comes in. So Zabu was the puppet for his real life counterpart, Jovian, who was in fact a lemur. But there was so much smart production that went into this show because like they built the main set in the sanctuary that Jovian lived in. That's why they interacted so well, because you weren't pulling it out of its own environment. Like, it was in its own environment, it was curious about what was happening. This main set or area was called Animal Junction, and it was where they brought all the animals to interact with each other. The show was super formulaic, as most kids' shows are now, you can tell, because like, I guess kids just need routine, who knows? But like, the Kratt brothers would walk into Animal Junction, they talk about some fun activity they were doing, and it would kind of lay the basis for the whole episode. They'd end up calling Zabu, who was Jovian at that point, like the real life counterpart, but they would call him Zabu, obviously, and he would jump in, he would sit on this table thing, and they would give him a treat. That would turn him into Puppet Zabu, who was able to talk and interact and everything. And the one thing that always bothered me when I was little is like I didn't understand how they could turn a real life lemur into a puppet like that could talk. And I thought, wow, if I just gave like my dog a special treat, I'll be able to do that with him too. And 20 years later, I still don't know a treat makes my dog talk.
Speak. No, that's not the kind of speaking I'm talking about. Speak. That's not the talking.
But then Zabu would tell us about this animal he saw on the way over here, but just couldn't figure out what it was. I mean, like, come on, Zabu, it's a freaking elephant. You can't tell me you don't know what an elephant is. Then whatever animal he's talking about would come into Animal Junction. Like, we gotta talk about the elephant in the room. Oh, that was so terrible. We would play with the animal for a little bit while the Kratt brothers would tell us fun facts about them to Zabu and also us, and just like, it was a good time. After fun with the animals, we'd end up doing some hard drugs with Zabu and going to Zabu Land, and I don't know how to describe this segment of the show at all. It felt like we were just doing some kind of crazy G-rated acid the whole entire time, because you see Zabu in clay form, and it has nothing to do with the episode. It just exists for its own entity of existing. Coming down from our Zabu Land drug experience, we would end up going into the real world where the Kratt brothers would help real creatures out. And I think the reason they wanted to do this was just like for their own personal enjoyment. Like, it feels like Kratt's Creatures again, where they're just showing kids like this is what the environment of these animals are, but like also like we're helping them. So like, Maybe it helped with funding. I never really understood that, but like, it was good. It was a fun little segment, but it also meant the show was coming to an end. The one thing though, before they'd go out into the real world, they would go over to their equipment closet because, you know, they need gear to go out and help animals. But what was really stupid is that every single time they did this, they would get crushed by all the equipment in there. Haha, comedic timing. It's so funny to be like crushed by things in the closet. And yes, it was funny the first couple of times, but like after watching it 60 something times, you can't just clean out your closet. How many concussions did they get? Seriously, why? Reused jokes and shots are a big theme of this show, and it makes sense because animal shows are not cheap whatsoever, especially if you're not using stock footage. If you're a kid, for the most part, you're not gonna really recognize that. I mean, yes, did I always recognize the weird Zaboomafoo hop thing in claymation? Yes, because it terrified me as a kid. But for the most part, other shots, no. A kid's not gonna recognize that. Now, if you're me, and you sat through 15 episodes in a row in one sitting to watch all these episodes, yeah, you're gonna notice it. You're gonna notice it a lot, and it's gonna really freaking annoy you. Did I like Zaboomafoo? 100%, not a question. It was great when I was a kid, and the fact that I'm still learning things about animals that I didn't know or I forgot, amazing. I'm putting it in B tier. Like, it's not bad, it's an amazing show, but like 12-minute episodes have been so much better than the full 30-minute blocks. It's funny, I never understood why people were scared of clowns growing up, because when you said clown to me, I imagined a girl on a big comfy couch with a doll. Big Comfy Couch was my comfort show when I was growing up, before I even knew what a comfort show was. Watching it always made me feel so like warm and comforted inside. Was it because 4-year-old me had a crush on Lunette growing up? Who knows? Also, if you were too cool to watch Big Comfy Couch or, was just too old for it when it came out, you might actually recognize Allison Court's voice, who plays Lunette, actually also voiced Jubilee in the X-Men animated series. There's no other way to describe this show, even today, other than it's just a girl with a doll on a giant couch, just existing. That's it. There's no real plot, it's just existing. Every episode just feels like, what silly antics are we gonna get up to today? Are we gonna invent a machine that shoots too many ping pong balls out of the couch, or pretend we're fish? There are a bunch of the same things we do in each episode, like reading a story, going to the dollhouse, we're gonna do our dancing, doing our stretches on the iconic clock rug. Although when I was younger, it feels like I was able to do the stretches alongside the show, and now I feel like this used to be a lot easier. Or going out to meet Major Bedhead to get our mail every single day. Also, I always thought that Major Bedhead and Lunette were in like a relationship or something growing up, and it wasn't until today, pretty much, that I realized that Major Bedhead was like 20 something years older than her when they recorded this. I was 4, I don't know what you want from me. In reality, he's a lot closer to Granny Garbanzo's age. Granny Garbanzo was fantastic. She introduced me to Eastern European culture, always offering amazing advice to Lunette when she needed it, living in her traveling cart that was... Wait, is Granny Garbanzo a gypsy? Is this show racist? Now, a lot of these repeating scenes are actually a little more important than you realize when you're a kid, because like the dollhouse scene, for example, like every time they do the dollhouse, it kind of represents kids speaking emotionally. As kids, how are we healthily expressing our emotions without always being able to, verbally say what we're feeling? And that's what the dollhouse did. I mean, it's the same thing with Molly. Molly was a doll, she can't talk, but she would give context clues every single time, being like, here's a picture of something, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I want, whatever it is. And as a kid, being able to do that and communicate that way was important. And even though the show was kind of a slow burn at times, it was always interactive and keeping you engaged with it the whole entire time. So like, kids would be stretching, they'd be dancing, like getting that energy out while they're watching the TV show so they're not bothering their parents later on. As an adult watching this again after like, 20 something years, I can honestly tell you like if I ever had a kid, this is a show they'd be watching. It's docile, it touches important topics, but isn't like overly preachy and teachy, which kind of pulls kids out of them. And I mean, to this day, people get so excited when the cast members go to conventions. Like, they will line up forever just to meet these characters that they grew up with, and it's really heartwarming to see pictures and videos of it happening. Big Comfy Couch is an A tier to me, and I know that might be kind of more of a stark thought process to a lot of people, but like, it was such a warm show, and it's still a warm show, 2 decades later? It lasted for 7 seasons, and I just can't say enough good things about this show. Let's talk about Clifford the Big Red Dog, who was like this 25-foot emotional support animal who lived on this island with a bunch of chill people that were kind of like, yeah, that's fine. Like, no one bats an eye that you have a 25-foot dog that could just stomp and just go a little crazy and eat all of you. No. It's cool. Clifford the Big Red Dog is honestly the reason I'm making this video. I actually just want to make a whole entire YouTube video about Clifford. This all started when we'd leave our dog Charlie and would go out and we'd want something on the background for him to keep him company. And when we come back, you know, the show would still be on and we'd watch for a little bit. And then I started watching a little bit by myself, and a lot bit by myself. And I watched the whole show alone. Yeah, I really like Clifford the Big Red Dog. So the show follows Clifford the Big Red Dog and his adventures on Birdwell Island. The book series is made by Norman Bridwell, along with his owner, Emily Elizabeth, who's like an 8-year-old beast tamer or something. I don't know. They should make a Yu-Gi-Oh card out of that, honestly. Each episode contains 2 11-minute segments based around social and life lessons. Like, you know, the usual kids show spiel. Being honest, helping others, managing jealousy, overcoming fear, learning to share. Clifford messes up a lot, but it's okay, because even though his paws are massive, his heart is even bigger. I don't know, I feel like the difference between this show and other kids shows, like, it's so low stakes. Like, there's never a sense of urgency, just warm and comfy, and I think that works for it really well. I kind of think it's also because like the characters are all so well written and kind of just collaborate well with the world and each other. So like for Clifford, he's a bunch of little other dog friends. We got Cleo. Cleo is the definition of the drama. She's like the Real Housewife dog of Birdwell Island. T-Bone is so relatable. He is just the soft boy who wants naps and snacks, and I just want a dog like that. Mac's like that rich kid, you know, who brags about his parents owning a yacht or just some boat or something, and you're just like, that's nice. It's like, my parents own a boat. What do your parents have? Oh, a 98 Chrysler. Then in contrast, you have like Emily Elizabeth's friends, like Charlie. Charlie is the most chill guy, but he also is the one that always gets everyone in trouble, but he does his best. He's a ride and die homie that while he starts the issues, he will also help you get out of them. Vaz, who's just like a generic nerd that they had to put in there, I don't know. And then Jeddah, and like Jeddah is the character you watch when you're little and you're like, wow, you suck, you're self-centered, you're the spoiled rich girl, and I don't like you. And then when you're watching it again as an adult, you're like, wait a minute, Jeddah's the only one that has her head on straight. She's the only one who understands real life world issues. No, Emily Elizabeth, your mom doesn't just want a stupid little card. She wants something nice, like matching sweaters or something with her daughter. Come on, think. The absurdity of all these episodes is just crazy. It's something like, oh, Clifford wants to help out. He destroys everything. Everyone forgives him because he's so darn cute and just wants to be there for everyone else. Lessons are learned. That's literally like each episode. It's fun, but like, that's it. That's the stakes. On the flip side, Emily Elizabeth is like the PBS version of a Disney princess who's just oblivious to everything happening around her. Absolutely unbothered by the chaos. Oh, it's okay, Clifford. You were just trying to help. Meanwhile, Clifford just destroyed like 3 houses by wagging his tail. The home insurance people must have on this island is astronomical. And speaking of affording things like home insurance, how do they afford to keep Clifford? How do they afford to feed him or anything? Because I never see the parents ever working or doing anything. Do they just have like, are they trust fund babies? Do they just have some massive sum of money that's just like, oh, I can afford everything? Because like they built a dog house right next to their regular house. It's bigger than their own house. Like it's just like a giant warehouse. It's like, yeah, we just got that kind of money. How? What did they do? Embezzle something? I need to know. And why is he so big? Because Emily Elizabeth loved him so much, obviously. Why would you think anything else? Why aren't you bigger? Do I not give you enough love? And just in case you were worrying because you finished a show and you're like, I need more Clifford the Big Red Dog in my life, they made a sequel when he was a little puppy. And the theme song is just as catchy as the original one is. Love makes little things grow. Clifford the Big Red Dog is PBS's giant red allegory for unconditional love and mild public destruction. He taught us that kindness matters, friendship and devotion is huge, and zoning laws are for fucking cowards. He wasn't just big, he was emotionally gigantic. And between him, Emily Elizabeth, and the rest of the cast and crew on Birdwell Island, it was the softest, warmest version of Euphoria that someone could watch before their nap time. A tier. Undoubtedly A tier. Sagwa the Chinese Siamese cat was something that popped into my PBS era really towards the end of it, so I don't fully remember watching it when I was little, which is insane to me because like, how do you forget a generic long name like Sagwa the Chinese Siamese cat? But to be fair, cartoons were kind of getting into this weird era where they just have really long titles like Super Robot Monkey Team Hyperforce Go, where like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. I'm not really sure what the psychology of that truly is. I think it's like if it has a bunch of different words in it, maybe you'll think of the show when you see them in regular life. I don't know, I'm not a marketer. So, the show takes place in Imperial China where Sagwa and her family are the official calligraphers or scribes for the local magistrate. Magistrates were like the local governors slash like government back then in Imperial China. But that also begs the questions, A, how do these cats know how to spell? B, how they learn calligraphy of all things, because that's incredibly difficult. And C, why do you have cats writing down the legislature that you created for hundreds of people? Seems kind of irresponsible. Unless you don't know how to write. Does the local magistrate know how to write? Is the government inefficient? But just remember, when you're watching this show at age like 5, this cat already had a more impressive resume than you ever will. Let that sink in. All these kids shows are all about learning life lessons and like emotional maturity and things like that, but like the little extra things that they sprinkle in are what makes these shows kind of stand out. And obviously the whole shtick with Sagwa was learning Confucius ethics and learning Chinese culture. All these shows happening at this time, PBS was doing an amazing job with like cultural diversity and inclusion. To me, Sagwa had this like mellow PBS aura and vibes to it, but also kind of hit upon a lot of things you wouldn't think about, especially themes like social hierarchy, because you have to remember, Sagwa and her family are pretty much like aristocrats. They are in government, they are high up there, and you see all these street cats that are not like them. Literacy empowerment was a huge thing back then because like not everyone could read, but you had these fancy cats that can. It really showed the difference between like the local magistrate and governors that had all this power and education and the locals. The cats have more rights than you. But damn it, they deserve it because they can do calligraphy unlike you. You were just busy working in the fields. Like one of the episodes is based on Dongwa, who's Sagwa's older brother, and yes, he is in fact a Dong. He feels like since he's the eldest brother and older than the others, he should be able to stay up and do whatever he wants. Like, I don't know, sing the Fireflies with his dad after he overhears his parents talking about singing them for the first time. Also, was this lore? Is this how the kittens were made? Is this still rated G? What's happening here? The parents begrudgingly agree, but the catch is he has to start doing adult tasks and chores and things that the kitten is just not ready for.
Silly girls, go fetch me a snack and then clean up this mess.
Again, he's kind of a jerk. But eventually he is rewarded and gets to see the Fireflies with his father, while also getting side-eye from these older cats who are judging him. Like, no wonder why Dong was a jerk. He's getting judged by these older cats for just existing. But Dongwa ends up learning the lesson of like, maybe I don't want to grow up this quickly and I need to enjoy being a kid. I really thought after this episode we'd have like a turning point for Dongwa where he'd be like more understanding and kind and a good big brother. No, he's a jerk for the rest of the series. The show kind of bounces back between the local magistrate and his weird Yzma wife lady who thinks she's on a Bravo TV show, and Sagwa's always there to either help or kind of hinder them for the plot of the story. And when she's not doing that, it's all about her family and growing up with them. Kind of like how Avatar: The Last Airbender had like cultural guides and proper research done to make the best, most authentic show they could, Sagwa does the same thing. And that's super important for kids because you don't want to have a cartoon that just all about stereotypes. So while Caillou was throwing tantrums and the Teletubbies were like eating radioactive custard, Sagwa was busy solving community conflicts and writing legislature. A lot of times it kind of turns into second monitor content, if you know what I mean, especially later on. Like after like 20 episodes, it just exists after a while and it doesn't feel as new or fresh. Still enjoyable, but like it had the run it deserved. Shining Time Station was America's introduction to Tom's the Tank Engine. So Shining Time Station was like this sitcom-esque kind of Sesame Street show. I don't really know how to describe it, but it was at a place called Shining Time Station, which was in Indian Valley, some indistinct place that they really don't tell you where it is. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be like middle America. And honestly, I don't even know what the time period is. They got these old timey-wimey phones and like a Nickelodeon video box. Oh my God, Ringo Starr's in this. Starring the Ringo Starr. Yes, that one from the Beatles. He's literally the main narrator of this show. He's a magical little conductor, kind of like Jiminy Cricket. Stacey Jones, who I do remember, who is a kind-hearted train station manager. Harry Cupper, the do-it-all engineer. Schemer, who is like a crowd favorite because he's just kind of comedic relief. He's a bumbling dingus that runs the arcade with his little like gelled swoopy hair. Kind of reminds me of Swiper from Dora the Explorer, where he's like, schemer, no scheming, schemer, no scheming. And of course the kid, Ben, Kara, Dan, there were a lot of kids, I don't really remember all of them, who were always kind of like the main focal point of each episode because they were like the ones learning the moral lessons, kind of like relatable to us as kids watching it. The whole show was kind of like cheesy, but in an endearing way, especially when you're a kid. Whatever the problem of the week kind of tied in with each episode of Thomas the Tank Engine that occurred with it. Like one of the episodes is about Kara, one of the kids, who makes a giant mess and she doesn't want to clean it up. Like Stacy asks her to, and she's like, I don't wanna, I'm a kid. I don't wanna take responsibility, which is relatable. I remember not wanting to clean up anything. I got yelled at a lot when I was little, by the way. She doesn't want to clean anything up. She asks the magical conductor, because he's got magical powers. Why can't he do it? And he was like, I could do it like that, but you were asked to do it, so you gotta do this because, life lessons. So she does what any future CEO would do and takes the magical little sparkles that the conductor has and makes an evil conductor twin. Yes, that's a thing apparently. And she makes a deal with the evil conductor to clean it up for her. But uh-oh, the evil conductor double crosses her. Who could have seen that from happening? And he gets up to all kinds of mayhem instead in the train station. Now they eventually trick and trap the, evil conductor doodle bob person back into the painting, and boom, moral learned. If someone asks you to clean up something, you should just do it because you're responsible. I guess that's the moral of the story, be responsible. But who cares about all that? More importantly, this show is all about Thomas the motherfucking Tank Engine. And if you were a Thomas the Tank Engine kid, you knew that and you knew this show rocked. They took all the episodes of Thomas and Friends from the UK and kind of tried to cobble it all together with Shining Time Station's real world stuff to make a cohesive episode. And sometimes it worked because it would fit with the moral of the story, and other times it just kind of didn't. But that was okay because we got episodes of Thomas the Tank Engine, and that's what mattered. And most importantly, we can't forget about the jukebox, because the jukebox was in every single episode and gave us some music that I did not care about. It was a cool little addition to they would put a coin in and they'd play some kind of royalty-free, copyright-free music that would be in the episode with these little puppet marionette things in the jukebox, making the songs happen, which is kind of a cool concept because when you're little, you're like, oh, I don't understand electronics, so it must be a little man in the jukebox, playing the music for us. Again, kind of cute. Didn't care about when I was a kid. In season 2 and 3, Ringo Starr got replaced by George Carlin, who was vastly inferior to Ringo Starr. George Carlin would also narrate all of the episodes of Thomas, again, just vastly inferior. Our engineer Harry Cupper ends up leaving, but we do get Billy Two Feathers, who is a proud Lakota man, as the engineer instead, and I really liked Billy Two Feather. He's a strong male role model and kind of like a father figure in comparison to what the show had. I do appreciate the fact that they don't try to manipulate any of the Thomas the Tank Engine episodes to make them more kid-friendly, because Thomas the Tank Engine can kind of get a little darker than you think, just leaving a train in a tunnel forever to rust away. Shining Time Station to me is an A tier because I just love Thomas the Tank Engine. But in all reality, I feel like it was more of a B, C tier show. Sadly, I'm probably gonna stick it in B. It might go to C later on. Personal bias is putting it in B. It was a creative way to bring Thomas the Tank Engine to the United States, and it is kind of fun. You have some nice moral lessons along the way, but it was just a little too forgettable for me. It just felt like an excuse half the time to use those characters in those episodes to bring Thomas over instead of having a real reason to exist in the train station with the kids and Stacy. I feel like the most memorable part of that show were the dead, lifeless eyes of all of those trains the whole entire time. I will never forget those until I die. Magic School Bus, aka the one where one woman would take an entire class of unsupervised minors on a field trip that probably broke most school policies within the first 2 minutes of it. All right, today class, we're gonna shrink ourselves and go into Arnold's bloodstreams. Are you ready? Yay! For real though, this is one of the greatest kid shows of all time. Most of my memories of the show come from grade school. Whenever we had a substitute teacher, they would always roll in the cart and play Magic School Bus, and I loved those days. I think it's fair to say that Bill Nye took impulsive thoughts and brought them to life, but the Magic School Bus took those daydreams you had and made them happen. Each episode took real scientific topics like, the ecosystem, digestion, the weather, physics, and would combine them into fun, nonsensical stuff while teaching you at the same time. This is what edutainment was trying to be in the early 2000s, but just couldn't quite grasp or mimic correctly. I mean, Cyber Chase was probably the closest thing they got to it, but that's still its own thing. And don't even get me started on Little Richard's theme song. You remember it. I remember it. But you know what's not talked about enough? The amount of representation that was in that classroom. And I don't mean by race or gender, I mean kids you would actually have in your own classrooms. That's completely even skipping over the fact Miss Frizzle was a pioneer of strong women figures in cartoons for kids growing up. But you know, like Arnold, the walking lawsuit. Carlos, the one that makes puns in the face of death. Phoebe, the one that won't shut up about her old school. We get it. Your old class is boring. This is fun. Enjoy it. Wanda, the one who wants to fight everyone. But you have to remember, this show was based off the books in the 80s, and it just does a phenomenal job of just aging so perfectly. Like, it's 2025, and everything they talk about back then, it still all holds true to this day. And one of my favorite things about this show was the end segment the producer says, where like, oh, it was so meta, because you have a producer that is producing this show in the show, but it's not a real producer, but like, and the producer would I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but anyways, a producer in the show who was made up would get a call from a kid, again, who's also made up, talking about the show, and they would give explanations of why they did certain things in the show. The producers would talk about all the accuracies they had and what they really kind of took liberties for your own entertainment. It really breaks the fourth wall, but does, you know, talk about what would scientifically happen in the real world, which is important because it's a TV show and these kids have to learn, but also know, you know, some of it's just made up for fun. I think at this point we all understood I really loved scientific shows when I was growing up, and this is a perfect example of it. A tier, not even a question, and if you disagree, you're wrong. That's it, you're just wrong. So as a millennial, you might not remember the show perfectly, but you definitely remember the puppet Kino. Every single episode, Kino would pop up and say this line.
What's the story, amigos?
And the whole show was literally just celebrities reading children's books to kids. And I don't mean just like regular little D-list celebrities. No. They got A-list celebrities like, you know, Patrick Swayze, Salma Hayek, Ellen DeGeneres, Tim Allen, Melissa Joan Hart, just to name a few. Granted, it was shot in California, and it was probably like a really good PR thing for these celebrities to show up. Their agents probably would be like, hey, PBS wants you to read a children's book to kids. That's it. It's gonna look really good for you in your career. It was literally so formulaic. Like I said, Kino pops up, we see celebrity there, they're gonna talk to the kids for a little bit, they pull out a book, they're like, I love this book because blah, 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 blah. And then they read it to the kids, rinse and repeat over and over again. Like you might have the same celebrity reading twice in one episode, or you might have two different celebrities reading an episode. Ooh, special. No plot to this show whatsoever. The cool thing though that I really like about it was that it was super inclusive. So like, let's say it was Black History Month or Latin Heritage. They chose books that kids would find in their library that would, you know, make them feel included. Cultural representation is really important. So if we see it in books and TV shows at the same exact time, that's a bonus. The show's a D tier. I mean, I really like the fact that we have inclusivity in this show, but there's a couple of shows that have inclusivity that does much better in comparison to just celebrities reading a book. So D tier, super sorry. Patrick Swayze and a puppet can only carry this show so much. On the flip side, this show right here, Wishbone, that's how you make a literature show for kids. Masterpiece. The show follows this Jack Russell Terrier named Wishbone, who's super intelligent, super energetic, and his not nearly as cool owner, Joe, and his friends. Each episode would kind of follow what was happening in the real world with Joe or Wishbone or his family members, what was happening, and then remind Wishbone of some classical literature masterpiece to go along with said occurrences. Something like Frankenstein, Treasure Island, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Time Machine. The show kind of has this Full House vibe to it because it's all about life lessons, but it's a lot less preachy and a lot more classic literature, with Larry Brantley voicing Wishbone, which is kind of funny because he hasn't done anything besides anime voice acting like since this show, which kind of makes sense of why I liked him so much, because he does have that anime protagonist voice to him. My biggest qualm with this show growing up, and to this day, when I rewatched it, I had the same exact feeling. It's like, Joe is supposed to be painted out to be this all-American boy, and he's kind of an idiot. Like literally a poor man's Corey from Boy Meets World, but that was kind of the whole thing in the 90s, you know, having this generic white guy with brown hair learning life lessons. Sure, America. At the end of the episode, everything would kind of like wrap up between the daydream that Wishbone has about the great literature and what was happening in the real world. But what made this show so great was how dedicated it was to keeping to the literature, like to the T. So there'd be a lot of times where we would have an unhappy ending because that's how some of the books ended. They just didn't always have happy endings, and they just didn't talk about happy topics a lot of times. It was realistic things. Like Frankenstein dies at the end of the episode because that's what happens in the book. I also really like the fact that like at the end of each episode, they would do a little 2-minute wrap up of like telling you how they did the production end of the show. And I don't know if it's because that's my industry and field and I'm just fascinated by it. Wishbone is how I learned about most classic literature, especially the things like we didn't learn about in school. And while sometimes they did kind of have to like abridge stories to make it fit into, you know, a 30-minute episode, it really does a good job of getting the point across. As a 7-year-old, I could tell you what happened in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or like Sleepy Hollow. Most 7-year-olds can't do that. Like, we don't learn that in school. Wishbone undoubtedly goes in A tier. Like, not a question in my mind. Wishbone is an A tier show. Since I love Thomas the Tank Engine, I must have clearly loved JJ the Jet Plane too. I don't know how Cyber Chase scared me, but these anthropomorphic vehicle-faced creature things didn't. Why? And what's worse is that, like, JJ didn't even have the creepiest looking face in the show. I do not remember them being this ugly. I genuinely don't remember this show being this creepy, but clearly it was. The first episode follows JJ, who's this like young, brash plane who sees a rainbow in the distance and is like, I want to touch that. Even though he's told that, yes, it does look like it's close, but that's not how it works.
Science rules.
He decides not to listen to anyone and goes to try to touch it and see it anyways. It's not the smartest plane in the world. But oh no, he gets caught in a storm and has to emergency land in this little barn. But he's a full-size plane, so he's not fitting his whole body inside of it. His tail half is sticking out in the rain. Apparently, this barn is owned by 2 hick farmers, Harry and Larry. And no, I'm not trying to be mean or anything. They literally are voiced as though they're hicks.
I'm Larry, said the other.
So JJ's tail end is all messed up, but the kind hick brothers are like, we'll paint it and fix it for you. JJ's like, oh my god, what a nice thing to do. Thank you so much. But apparently these farmers are like colorblind or something because they decide to paint his tail end blue. Why? I don't know. I never understood this when I was little, and I still don't understand it to this day. Why wouldn't you even tell JJ, hey, it's gonna be a different color, but we can, you know, fix the tail end if that's cool with you? It's not like JJ would know because, oh, he can't turn around. He's just a plane with a face on the front. How could he see the back of him? Embarrassed, JJ flies back to the hangar to meet up with everyone else, hoping that no one finds out that he did something incredibly stupid. When he arrives back at the hangar, we meet Easy O'Malley, who is, I guess, like a pilot or something. I don't know. It's just assumed that we know who this Easy O'Malley is. Like, oh yeah, it's Easy O'Malley. Everyone knows Easy O'Malley. But Easy O'Malley sees the tail end of JJ. He's like, hey buddy, let's do some training exercises. And by that I mean go fly over that lake over there and look into the reflection. JJ, thinking he got off scot-free, he's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do that. And while he's flying over the lake, he realizes he's a freaking fool. A fool. When JJ returns, he's all flustered and embarrassed. He's like, ah, shit, everyone knows that I fucked up. Easy O'Malley's sitting there like, well, I hope you like the color blue because this is now your new color. And that's how JJ kind of came to be as a blue little jet plane. Sure. That's the first episode. Most importantly, we learned the life lesson that lying is bad, and he should have just told them the truth, that he was stupid and wanted to touch a rainbow. Idiot. Gosh, what an episode. I had all of these on VHS when I was little, and I watched them so many times over and over and over. I actually like JJ the Jet Plane more than Shining Time Junction, and it's not because I thought Thomas was not as cool as JJ. In fact, I thought Thomas was like 2 times as cool as JJ. It's more so that JJ the Jet Plane just didn't have real people in it, because I don't care about the real people. I just want to see the anthropomorphic vehicles. Funny enough, the style of moving models as a TV show kind of basis didn't last very long. In fact, it was really just the VHS tapes. So they actually switched over to full animation when the show got picked up in season 1 by TLC. Later on, it goes back to PBS, but season 1 was a TLC show. And oh my god, this looks so much worse. The theme song got worse, and just they added real people that they superimposed into the show. I just told you the reason I like this more than Shining Time was because there were no real people in it, and now you just ruined it for me. And it's weird animation with real people, so it's so much worse. Look at this weird face tracing animation style thing. You're telling me this is better? It's not. It looks all crusty and weird. I hate it. God, just like use some moisturizer or lip balm. That's disgusting. The animation's just worse. Everything looks weird and choppy. I hate it so much. Don't get me wrong. The messages in all the new episodes are just as well. I mean, the first episode with his new animation style is like about Snuffy, and it's kind of like body positivity because he's really embarrassed about his propeller on picture day. But with the help of his friends, he realizes he should love himself, and
Snuffy realized that just as the Bible says, God makes each of us wonderfully different.
what? Yeah, didn't realize it was a Christian show when I was growing up. There's a good reason for that. Because on PBS, when it was airing, they got rid of that. If you watched it on TLC, JJ would roll into the scene and be like, if you trust in Jesus, you'll never be without jet fuel. Literally like the next level of Jesus Take the Wheel, but they were like, hey Jesus, you're flying the freaking plane. So when PBS picked it up, which is when I watched it, they were like, cool, love the Jesus stuff. We're taking out all of it. Now anytime they'd like talk about Christianity or something. We're gonna talk about feelings instead. Isn't that gonna be fun? So in later episodes, instead of quoting the Bible, JJ would be like, I'm scared, and that was like the whole episode. The versions I found online were all the Christian versions, so it was like watching a whole new show all over again. This was like kind of common back then because VeggieTales also did that, but I always knew VeggieTales was a Christian show. I did not know that about JJ the Jet Plane. This was one of the shows going in again that I thought I was gonna love rewatching, and then I realized no, I didn't. This was a terrible show. I did not enjoy this whatsoever. JJ the Jet Plane is kind of like Thomas the Tank Engine if we like face swap them and baptize them at the same time. I don't know if that really made sense, but that's kind of how I felt when I was watching the show. So, C tier. Dragon Tales was this show where you said a poem to a magical dragon scale and somehow got zapped into a therapy session with dragons who were dealing with, anxiety, self-confidence, and childhood trauma, all kind of wrapped up in some glittery wings in a magical world. And you know what? It healed us. Sorta. A little bit. Dragon Tales was a show that we loved growing up, especially me. Let's be honest, we all tried reciting that poem once or twice to be transported to Dragonland, because who wouldn't want to go there? It's magical, it's fun, they had dandelions. Dandelions. I don't know why, but I love these things so much. So you have Max and Emmy who just moved into this new house with their family. They walk into a room with a bunch of dragon wallpaper stuff on it and see a magical dragon scale. And Emmy, being the boss-ass Latina that she is, that's super confident, unlike Max, who's a little gremlin. I don't know why PBS could not make, a competent boy character ever, but kind of makes sense in reality. So the kids get transported to Dragonland where they meet Cassie and Ord, who are looking for Ord's tooth. Rewatching this as an adult makes me hate Ord so much because when I was little, he was blue, he was built like a tank, and I thought like, wow, that's so cool. But like now as an adult, I'm like, dude, you sound like Sloth from the Goonies and you also look like him and you just make me angry. Am I being too hard on an imaginary character that was made up for a children's TV show? Nah. And then Cassie, who is super sweet, super sensitive, super intelligent, and the nicest dragon ever, but also deeply insecure, and she would apologize to you for like if the clouds were going the wrong way in the sky. Now they don't know where the tooth is, so they head over to their friend Zach and Wheezy's place to see if they know where it is. But also, Ord, why the hell are you leaving your teeth random places? Are you the tooth fairy? Like, what? Now, Zach and Wheezy are these conjoined twins. They're kind of like yin and yang. One's clean and the other one's super chaotic. They kind of balance each other out in a certain weird way, and it's entertaining to watch them, but also like, it's weird that they're conjoined sometimes. I think they're supposed to be like a hydra, but like I don't know, as an adult, now it's kind of weird. But it's not there, so they decide to head over to Quetzal's. Quetzal is this wise teacher at the dragon school. He's kind of like this omnipotent Yoda kind of creature thing that knows everything, but he's also from Mexico. Yeah, they don't really explain this one. I do not understand. Like, of all the characters in this show, he is the only dragon from the real world. I'm not gonna question it because he's all-knowing and all-seeing, but also like, where are Cassie and Ord from then? Quetzal's like, let me tell you all about Dragonland and all the creatures in it and some stories and things and stuff. And on the way, we figure out that Max has Ord's tooth the whole entire time. God, I hate you, Max. Quetzal ends up giving Ord a magical scale so the kids can communicate with the dragons when they're real world and be able to come back there anytime they want. And then sends the kids back to the real world where the episode ends. The show kind of follows this formula the whole entire way. Like the kids get back from school or start in the room and are discussing about how excited they are to go to Dragonland and what activities they're gonna do or what problems they're dealing with. Then they end up going to Dragonland, they go on this whole dragon field trip, they laugh, they cry, they sing a song and resolve everything. Quetzal gives us this wise lesson. In reality, he could have like just saved us the whole entire episode and told us what to do, but it's fine. We had to learn a lesson along the way. Now, that's kind of like dumbing it down a little bit because not every single episode has some like magical ending and fixed it all. A lot of times there's just like issues that the kids are dealing with or even the dragons are dealing with, and they kind of have to learn to live with it like the real world, because not everything's always gonna have a happy ending, which I do appreciate. Unlike other PBS emotional-based shows, now, we make progress in every episode using the dragon badges that all the dragons have. They kind of glow when things are going right. So like when Cassie has self-confidence or when Ord's not a little bitch, when Zach and Wheezy learn to compromise. Which makes sense because kids need visualization sometimes with emotions to really understand them. Skipping season 2 and going straight to 3, we are introduced to Enrique, who is Max and Emmy's new neighbor from Colombia. And the show really starts leaning into Latin influences and teaching about Latin cultures. Which is fantastic because learning about cultures as well as emotions just really tie well together. What really stands out to me in this show is the world building, because PBS was doing an amazing job with that in the early 2000s with things like Cyber Chase as well as Dragon Tales, which again, I said it before and I'll say it again, it feels like all the locations and places we go in Dragon Tales, wow, they existed a long time before I got here and they're gonna exist a long time after I leave. We do eventually really leave Dragon Tales forever, which, you know, the show got canceled. I'm kind of shocked that it did though sometimes, because the amount of merchandising and video games and things they made with Dragon Tales, like it was a money cash cow, and I don't know why they gave that up. But even a powerhouse like Dragon Tales does need a conclusion at some point. Dragon Tales did what Caillou wanted to do with emotional learning, but at a much better capacity. So I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Between the Lines didn't just teach you how to read, it radicalized you into a bookworm. It was puppets, parodies, soul music, medieval shouting, and sheer phonetic chaos packed into one library, where every single shelf was like a gateway to grammar-based enlightenment. Between the Lines was like the next step from Sesame Street, where like Sesame Street taught you letters and numbers. In Between the Lines was taking you to that next step where you're learning grammar and how to read. As you can see, the show is set in this magical library ran by anthropomorphic lions. You have Leo and Cleo, the father and mother, who run it, and then their kids, Lionel and Leona, with so many other fun, colorful, vibrant characters popping up all the time. Each episode would either have a central book that had a story that would come to life and affect everyone, or feature reading concepts, like words that have EN in them, learning how to pronounce them, words that feature them, things like that. From spelling tricks to songs to mini parodies about classic tales, the show taught kids how to decode, understand, and fall in love with reading. Seriously, I think that's the reason I love the show so much, because it wasn't so much preachy as much as just a bunch of lines that wanted you to learn how to read. Like, that's it. But if you're my age and you don't remember this show for the stories, you definitely remember for the ADHD level amount of segments that were in each episode. Some of my favorites were like which was like a parody on Wayne's World and Monty Python. Two medieval dudes would run up to each other screaming phonemes like a WWE tag team match to create a word. The singing segments with the vowels, who were like this Motown vibe, teaching you how to, you know, use vowels. Or Cleo's country music segments teaching pronunciations. Fun with Chicken Jane is probably the most unhinged short story segment I've ever seen in a children's show. You have two idiot children who are ignoring every single sign in the world, and this poor Chicken Jane's just like, hey, follow this. Here's a word. Don't do this, or do this, please. They'd be doing something stupid like, I don't know, jumping on a rock, and Chicken Jane's like, get off the rock, stop. And then Chicken Jane would end up sacrificing herself trying to save them because they're stupid, and they're like, maybe we should get off this rock, and leaving Chicken Jane to get like smashed. It's PBS's short version of Courage the Cowardly Dog. And most importantly, obviously, cliffhanger. This poor guy is hanging onto a branch alongside a cliff, just trying to rescue himself, and every single time there's like an opportunity or something good happens, he gets stuck back on that branch, just holding on for dear life. Spoiler, no, he never escapes. He's hanging from that cliff forever. There's actually even an episode about him based on like the imaginary author who makes it. It's like, I'm done with this book. And Lionel ends up convincing him, being like, no, this series has to continue. And the author agrees, so poor cliffhanger back hanging on a cliff. This show was critically acclaimed, and parents loved when their kids were watching it, because it wasn't just this weird show with a bunch of gargling noises from screaming characters like, I don't know, Teletubbies. The problem though was that this was one of, if not the most expensive show PBS ever had. Like, episodes would cost around $500,000 back in 1999. With inflation today, it probably costs around like $2 million to make an episode. Again, on PBS. But the crazy thing is, even with all those funding issues, people kept paying for it. People kept trying to fund them individually because it was that successful and people needed this show to happen. Like, that is a testament to A, how amazing the show was, and B, how many people just loved it so much. And I think the other reason this is just so darn endearing to me is because it was made in the early 2000s. Like, technology feels like a weird time capsule then, because they're talking about things like cyberspace and like the old dinosaur computers. It's just fascinating. I mean, just look at the mouse in this show. Like, I haven't seen a mouse that's that big and chonky in like forever. Late 90s, early 2000s, that's what libraries were like when I was a kid. And while watching a bunch of episodes of this show, I don't really want to watch it ever again. However, if I had a kid, this is like one of the first shows I would want them to watch. So it is an A tier. Liberty Kids only lasted 1 year and followed the exposition of 3 children journalists during the Revolutionary War. Sarah, a British loyalist, James, a patriot, and Henri, a French orphan. I never really understood what Henri's skin in the game was. Like, I know the French helped the colonies during the Revolutionary War and everything, but like, he was honestly just there for comedic relief. But he is also like the most entertaining person in that show. They work for Ben Franklin, my boy, Let's Go Philly, It's an unfortunate time to be wearing a New York shirt, I guess. And his newspaper. So he'd pretty much tell the kids, be like, hey, there's a super dangerous battle happening over there. Go report on it. I mean, like, people only lived between 35, 40 years old. So, like, if you get shot or something, like, it's not a big deal. Also, child labor. Speaking of Ben Franklin, they actually got Walter Cronkite to voice him, which is so cool. If you don't know who Walter Cronkite is, he's like the news anchor. I'm trying to think of how to put this in Zillennial terms if you don't know who he is, because like your parents would. He's pretty much what Ron Burgundy is a parody of, if that makes sense. Actually, besides Walter Cronkite, they had a couple of big name voice actors in the show, like Arnold Schwarzenegger was in it. He played Baron von Steuben, Sylvester Stallone was Paul Revere, and Thomas Jefferson was Ben Stiller? Like the Ben Stiller? Like the Ben Stiller? I actually do like the show a bit because history is kind of interesting to me, and it does approach the American Revolution a little more neutral than most American TV shows would. I mean, it's still an American show, so like they're gonna have their biases, but like it does get a lot more nitty gritty into interesting stories that you might not learn if you were in grade school learning history. Like in 6th grade, we touch on the Battle of Bunker Hill, but like that's it. At least we have a whole episode in this show about that. But on the production side of things, why did you make a show that's so open and closed on one subject? The American Revolution starts and it ends. There's only so many things you can tell. There's like a finite amount of stories you can tell within that. Unless they were thinking they could do a spin-off of like the War of 1812 or the Civil War. I don't know, but Liberty Kids, entertaining, not really that memorable as a PBS show. C tier. So I'm coming home from the gym right now and I just realized something. Aaron Carter did the theme song for Liberty's Kids. I had no idea. Like, it sounds so familiar, but now I'm realizing, like, it just hit me. That's Aaron Carter. Puzzle's Place is another one of those shows that I was kind of too young to fully remember, but it was so important that it existed. However, the fact that I don't really remember it makes me feel like kind of a dingus. You know why? Because Puzzle's Place featured a group of multi-ethnic puppet characters, all from different cultural, regional, and ethnic backgrounds, and each episode really hit home on realistic, real-world issues. Racism, gender roles, body image, peer pressure, bullying, family differences, cultural traditions. This show literally taught you systemic racism before you could even spell the word systemic. The cast featured Julie Wu, a Chinese American from San Francisco, Leon McNeil, an African American from New York, Kiki Flores, a Mexican American, Sky Nakai, a Native American, Jodie Silver, a Jewish girl, and Ben Olofsson, a Norwegian American from North Dakota. Ben and Jodie, of course, need to be gently dragged at times because they say stupid things like, wow, you don't look like you're from America. And then the whole entire place would go silent. And suddenly, you're age 7 realizing, is this what internalized racism is? Your average episode would kind of go along the lines of, hey kids, today we're gonna learn about racial microaggressions. Also, we might do like a little dance or something about our feelings and stuff, so like strap in. Now, if you're a Zillennial or a Zoomer and you're wondering, wait, why have I never heard about this show? It's because it was way ahead of its time. And I don't mean like a little ahead of its time, I mean like hyper ahead of its time, which you wouldn't think about that in the 90s, but it made people really uncomfy. And on the flip side, the other really big issue, because people talk with their wallets, is that you didn't have any merchandise for it. Sesame Street has Tickle Me Elmo, you can't really have Tickle Me Kiki Flores. But like educators and children's psychologists absolutely love this show because it gave a voice to marginalized communities who just never felt heard before, especially at like a childhood capacity. My only real gripe with the show is that it's a really slow burn at times, like something a 6 or 7-year-old kid might not be able to sit through. But me being 31, yes, I can sit through it and learn a lot. Honestly, I wish the show would come back because even though it ended, what, 30 years ago, we're dealing with the same exact issues we were back in 1995, 1996, and it's 2025 now. It would literally help so many people so much more than people realize. But with, you know, PBS cut funding, you think they're really gonna do that? While I do love this show, I am still sticking in B tier. It's really close to an A, but it is, like I said, such a slow burn. And for kids, it's really hard. 5-year-old me definitely would not have been able to like sit through this whole entire show the whole entire time. All right, let's talk about Zoom, which was actually a reboot in 1999. How do I describe Zoom? Zoom was the equivalent of like when you get home from the bar and you're eating a snack that you don't even know if you want to consume or not, but like you have to consume something and it's just kind of there and you think you're enjoying it. But the theme song, don't even get me started on the theme song of Zoom. I don't know how else to describe Zoom besides like an after-school program with kids that we recorded doing things just existing, because it wasn't scripted whatsoever. As a kid, I thought it was kind of cool, but I don't know if it's because I thought it was entertaining or if it's because I just wanted to be a part of the show with all those kids doing the activities. Because most of the things that they do on the show are just random write-ins that kids that, were watching the show send in to them to do. They play games, they do science experiments, they have relatable conversations like being a kid and moving to a new town for the first time, and then random hypotheticals like if you could talk to your pet, what would you ask them? But most importantly, Wooba, Lubar Numeb, about to boast of a beak, Ubin, Ababubby, Dubabubby. Woo! I did it! Oh my god, that took me an hour and 17 minutes to be able to do that. Oh my god, I don't care if the audio is bad. I don't care. It took me so long, and it took me so long. F Zoom, you're going in C tier. I'm not talking about this anymore. If you can speak ubby-dubby fluently, good for you. I can't do it. I hated doing that. That was terrible. Theodore the Tugboat was originally a Canadian show that PBS picked up because they thought, wow, between Thomas the Tank Engine and JJ the Jet Plane, we don't have enough anthropomorphic vehicle-based shows with weird eyes to scare our children. It was a show where boats had faces, jobs, emotions, and most importantly, the Canadian urge to apologize for everything and anything possible. But you know what the show has that Thomas the Tank Engine and JJ didn't have? Hats. Because without them, you can never tell any of the characters apart. The first episode's called Theodore in the Big Harbor, but it should be called Big Harbor, Tiny Tugboat, Giant Ego Check. So every episode starts out with the harbor master. Kind of like how Tom's the Tank Engine starts out with like a real person in the real world. That's what happens with Theodore the Tugboat, with the harbor master being the real character setting the scene in an episode. Theodore floats into the harbor with his little red hat, puffed up like he owns the ocean, and goes straight to the dispatcher. Now the dispatcher is the one that's in charge of delegating jobs. But Theodore, being new, isn't given any job and is told pretty much like, go float around the harbor, see what it's like, this is your new home, get adapted to it. Which Theodore doesn't love, but he does. He meets the fairy twins, Fillmore and Philip, who are just going back and forth, and sees Big Benjamin the bridge, who makes fun of Theodore for being so tiny, because, he's a tiny little tugboat. Get over it, Theodore. Theodore eventually makes it back to the docks where he realizes, oh my god, he doesn't have a private dock. He has to share one. Do people know who he is? He's Theodore the Tugboat. He meets Hank, who is a boat that's kind enough to offer to share his own with Theodore. And Theodore's all stuck up and being like, I guess I can do this for a night. Like, bitch, you have nowhere else to go. Theodore clearly has this whole big fish in a tiny pond syndrome that he needs to get over because now he's a tiny, tiny fish in a big ocean. The next morning, he finally gets his first job, which is going with George, a tugboat that's twice his size, to move a giant cargo ship, which he's never moved that size before. Now, when they get there, so if you don't know about tugboats, this is a real thing. Tugboats, if you're the bigger engine, you're the one that's pulling and guiding and leading. The one with the smaller engine, which is the one that's assisting in the back, the secondary power is pushing. Now Theodore is like, I'm a puller, not a pusher. And as such, he's asked, have you done this before? And he's like, well, no. It's like, get over your little Napoleon complex. You're going to be pushing. Get used to it. After grumbling enough, he eventually does do, his job, the reason he's there. And while returning to the docks, he sees Emily, another tugboat, going out to the vast open sea. And he's like, well, I can't do that. I'm a little tugboat. So clearly she can't do that either. And he goes chasing after her, latches her up and lassos her, and brings her back to the docks. Because, heaven forbid she had free will. She has to deal with all these other dumb men tugboats all day long, and she's probably trying to get some freedom. Let her do her thing. So Theodore brings her back to the docks, to the dispatcher, and is like tattletaling on her for going out to the open sea, and is told, yeah, she's able to do that. She's, better than you. But the best part, and by best part I mean the dumbest part, is the dispatcher doesn't even get angry at him. None of this would have happened if Theodore wasn't a nosy Nelly and just let Emily do her thing. His superior, who is better than him. Again, you're the new kid. You don't just go in and be like, everyone's doing everything wrong, I know better than you. But again, no, he doesn't get any punishment for this, none whatsoever, because he's just doing his best. So stupid, so dumb. Again, we're learning that certain boats can go into the open sea, they're bigger, they're stronger, they can do whatever, they have the rights, they've earned that. And we learned that Theodore, to do that, needs to do, tasks and really earn his keep, in a sense, to be able to go in the ocean and prove that he can handle himself. So the end of this episode really does reach the point where Theodore realizes he is the small one in the big pond at this point, and he needs to realize it takes some effort to get where he needs to be. And he does accept this, which is good because the whole episode is about acceptance and realizing, okay, I'm a child, or a boat in this case, and I need to grow and learn. And that's what he does. And the rest of the series, he does. He grows up so much and matures so much more. This first episode always leaves a bad taste in my mouth because this isn't the Theodore. No, he's an asshole. But in reality, he's such a good, helpful tugboat. So thankfully, Theodore does not remain a little shit for the rest of the show, although he does need to work on his communication skills. A lot. In one episode, his friend Fodok keeps bumping into him, doing it as a term and endearment thing, good job. And Theodore doesn't like that. He doesn't like being bumped. So instead of, communicating with Bodoc and being like, hey buddy, do you not want to bump me? It kind of hurts me. I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. He's like, we're not friends anymore. No explanations, no nothing. Just like, we're not friends anymore, because that's the mature thing to do. Eventually they do find a resolution and he, says something because Bodoc doesn't know this, but it's fine. Or like, when Theodore has really bad night terrors and he doesn't, say anything to anyone, he bottles it up and then he kind of explodes and gets all cranky. But then Emily, the one female in the show who has like a brain and logic, is like, what if we talk this out? I really like Theodore, and it's not just specifically based on the stories, because let's be honest, there's only so many times you can like rehash the same emotional growth story over and over again. No, I just really like the world, and it's not like how Cyber Chase builds their whole entire world where it's like, oh, we're going on adventures and it existed for a long time before and it exists afterwards. The world that Theodore the Tugboat builds is just nice. It's calm, the narration, the music, and like there's a couple times I actually fell asleep watching it, but I don't think that's a big deal. I think that's a good thing. I don't know, they just really did a good job creating that calm world. Like, it's the most soothing thing ever and really calms my anxiety, actually. Theodore the Tugboat wasn't flashy in any way, shape, or form, but it was calm, it was soothing, parents loved it, and it kind of floated into the hearts of 80 different countries. Yeah, it was worldwide. People loved this show. To the point where there was a Theodore tugboat, like a real tugboat, that went all around North America, and people would just like come out to this event to see a tugboat with its face on it. Come on, if people are traveling hours and hours and hours to see a boat with a face on it, I think you're doing a good job. I'm putting it in a B tier, which is kind of funny for all the praise I'm giving it, but like I said, the stories kind of got repetitive, and it felt like sometimes we're just telling the same stories over and over again from other shows, which it is what it is with kid shows. Most people aren't watching them over and over and over again for hours like I did, but B tier. Fight me. Oh my god, I'm done. I did it. I watched all the shows. I talked about all the shows. Here's my ranking. I don't care if you like them or not. This is what I'm ranking them. I'm actually kidding. I think I might have missed a show or two, to be fully honest with you. So if I did, let me know in the comments, because actually it's kind of impressive if you watch this whole entire video and can tell me what I missed, but I think I did a pretty comprehensive list of everything, and I don't think my tier list is that incorrect. I mean, it's my personal opinion, and maybe you think anthropomorphic vehicles like JJ, Thomas, and Theodore are in fact weird, which is a completely respectable opinion. I mean, I disagree with you, but completely respectable. So you might have put them in like the F tier, and you might have said that Caillou was good. No one said Caillou was good. No one ever said Caillou was good. Maybe Teletubbies, because our girlfriend thinks it's good, but nothing else. Absolutely nothing else. So if you enjoyed this video, just like it and comment and say I did a good job, or tell me what shows should be elsewhere, because I don't want to ever do this ever again. This is a terrible idea. I watch way too much TV. Why did I take off work for this?